Hello and welcome to the Footprint Podcast Season 2. I'm Somil.
And I'm Ali. Welcome back. In season 2, we're going to discuss a bit more detail and about the how and why you need a playbook if you're an executive of a company or managing an operations or running a company, on how to really incorporate agents, how to think about incorporating agents and why you should be doing that. We plan to give you that playbook over the next few episodes of our season 2. So stay tuned. But for the first one, what are we going to talk about today as the introduction to the whole playbook?
Absolutely. So today, I think I'm still very much inspired by CES 2025 and also the recent launch of DeepSeek. I think and something that we have been saying for quite some time. So today let's talk about the agentic revolution and how LLMs are becoming the AI cloud, or cloudification of LLMs.
Sounds good. But one thing that we see, and I think we can jump onto DeepSeek as an example, is that the more money, the more companies, the more research goes to this domain, LLMs are slowly becoming commodities. It's not about having the best LLM. They're becoming things similar to cloud infrastructure in the good old days. And I expected the margins to start shrinking and the pricing becoming much, much more accessible for everyone. Now the question is, do you really need big, giant models or not, and so on? But also, one key thing that we need to also consider, Sumil, and I want to get your view on that, is that vector databases, RAG solutions, and so on, they seem to be losing their differentiation as well. What's your view on it?
Absolutely. I think LLM as a technology was quite groundbreaking when it came in. But as the applications are being developed, as we see more and more new players coming in, definitely everything surrounding the entire ecosystem, it starts to commoditize, because it's if you look at the whole mechanics of how we store, how we work with LLMs, I think that is quite standard. So it's needless. I mean, we can infer that in future, all of these technologies, like how you have SQLs, right? Today, you have one SQL database technology versus another. It's pretty much the same, and the difference becomes more into the applications and very specific use cases that it support. I think the same thing will probably also happen to LLMs and the surrounding technology, because the market will start shifting focus to applications and specialized use cases as this core technology, which is vector based language models, as they become more and more commoditized.
Yeah, before we get any further, I want to do a public service announcement as well. There's been a lot of discussions about DeepSeek, and now nobody wants fancy GPUs and so on. I think it's training is one aspect. A lot of computation that's being invested in right now is for inference, for really reasoning, live service to the actual applications. It's not only training that's being invested in. So people need to consider that. So it's not that like, oh, well, we have a cheaper to train model, but then you still need quite a lot of things. And companies like NVIDIA are not screwed yet. There's quite a lot of GPU that we still need in this domain. So public service announcement done. Moving on. So going back to investments and large investments, OpenAI's head start is starting to look less and less important anymore, because people are trying to innovate themselves around the problems of catching up with OpenAI. I'm quite impressed by how fast XAI has actually set up an operation very quickly, catching up. Of course, Meta has gone the open source route and trying to build up a community. That's where DeepSeek actually came about as well, trying to learn from that and doing a bit of a copycat there, trying to build up and innovate on top. So the problem is shifting, in my view, from having big, large LLMs to more demand for smaller, modular, interoperable systems. So what do you think? What are the kind of LLMs do you think will be actually dominant moving forward? And what are you excited about in the agentic world?
Yeah. So I think, as you said, we need to we need more interoperability, because as the LLM as offerings become more and more commoditized, it's natural for these players to start seeking specialization. So, for example, you could see that some LLMs, they are more start getting towards consumers and commerce and social media, those kind of use cases, while others might start focusing on, for example, Azure and Microsoft might start pivoting more towards enterprise use cases. We have already seen like Bloomberg GPT, which was more on the fintech and finance oriented GPT. So I think we will see a lot more modernization and specialization in the LLMs. And interoperability, I think one of the things that really would be needed is on the embeddings level, because right now the embeddings are not interchangeable and interoperable. You could still work your way around it, like we've been trying to do, but I think we can expect a more elegant solutions for that. And two things that actually caught my attention and interest was one, late last year, when Meta announced the large concept models, which kind of abstracts
Exactly.
the sentences and ideas into a higher level concept. I think they're still looking at sentences rather than vector or individual encodings. It is a level up, but I think there's more room to grow, to actually conceptualize or uh, represent higher level concepts like equations or mathematical sequences. And the second paper, which actually got published a few 3 or 4 days ago, which was on the reasoning models, and that was quite interesting as well, because now people are building layered, thinking sequence or reasoning sequences on top of the language model. So you could actually, and that paper really goes into how can you create different reasoning schemas like chain of thought, react, decision tree. So a lot of different such reasoning aspects we're creating another layer of sophistication on the LLMs. I think these are very, very important, because when we have this, it will allow applications and agents specifically to have a higher order level thinking. They can take, I would say, more abstract tasks. I think that would really supercharge the application domain. I think we will see a really a large a floodgate will open of different applications. I think, and that's where I believe the future lies, in more tailored interoperable LLMs which support really integrated applications and solutions, and specializing into different things. For example, if I want a financial analysis, I will not give it to an open AI. I would probably give it to FinGPT, right? And I want to have supply chain, because then the domain is already encoded in those LLMs. So that will, in my view, should take away a lot of this complexity around fine tuning and still increasing the accuracy.
Yeah, and I'm actually quite impressed by the whole idea of reasoning language models. I'm very, very, very keen to see how that gets developed. I think all of that enables a completely different landscape, and that basically the value is shifting from just using directly ChatGPTs of the world, for lack of a better example, close to LLM applications, to higher order applications and language enabled agents that are the drivers of the value, that are more connected to the actual problem solving use cases and tasks that they manage, rather than basic things that currently LLMs and whatever we used to call agents in 2024 used to do. That is very interesting. I think we will see an explosion of vertical agents tailored to industries. We'll see a lot of specifically developed agents on top of language models, but also maybe LLM agnostic agents that you basically, as a user, as a customer, can actually use whatever LLM you feel fit for that. And that's something that I personally believe in, that having these agnostic layers will help people develop applications much faster and try to experiment a lot more. And I think the main aspect of agents that I see and I want to see further is how they actually get started to integrate into enterprise operations, and how they really take over some workflows, augmenting how actual processes, how augmenting how actual tasks are done. And that basically gets us to our favorite topic, the enterprise stack that right now that is being used and you and I have a big beef with. What are the challenges that this approach you see brings in from the current setups of ERPs and so on?
Absolutely. I think I agree. And as Satya said, right, that agents are going to replace a lot of these B2B SaaS applications. I do see that is true, because the whole approach of, I mean, I don't see why if I have a bunch of agentic workforce, why would I still do things point after point after point, screen by screen, and form by form? I don't really see a need for that. I think we can actually make the whole experience a lot more engaging and interesting for people. And now, if you look at the flexibility of agentic systems to really read a wide range of schemas from your legacy mainframe to your most modern SaaS, I think that put them in a very unique position to integrate the stack in a way that no other technology has done before. The IT integrations could not do it, the message queues could not do it, the data integration could not do it. But I think because they're still schema dependent, but in the agentic scene, I think we can read and translate between schemas very, very easily. So that gives me a hope that we will see the whole tech stack will start evolving and converging around this event-driven architectures. And we see that AI agents will integrate seamlessly into these tech stack. So then the question is like, do you really need like huge databases? So can you have like a single multi-dimensional database that kind of covers different aspects of the business? And I think that is pushing a lot of legacy monolithic systems like ERPs in a do or die moment. So either you evolve and really kind of step up, open yourself up, or you basically will be bypassed. People will start building on top of it. I think we have seen IBM mainframes, especially in the banking, the I series. We have seen that now. Those have gone into more like a backend, and then people have built apps and servers and services on top of it. So I think that's a big risk that ERPs will recede in the background. And then the question of value versus, I think you had the statistics like 30% or something of the R&D or IT spent is spent on ERPs. I think that's a big number. So
Actually,
people at
average
some point,
margin of large enterprises.
oh wow,
So
so average
30%
margin, okay,
margin. Yes.
perfect. So basically, then that's really huge. And then people sometimes start asking questions like, what's the value that we were getting? And then these ERPs and these OEMs would be in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's funny because the guideline of many ERP manufacturers is that 3% of your annual sales will go to this. And I was like, okay, well, that's a bit too much. But I think it's interesting because, frankly, I think right now, in the past, ERPs worked really well as a ledger, as a system of records. But really, they don't record everything nowadays. There's so much happening that they cannot record, right? And moving to event driven, having a more persistent and consistent event log is a much better way of dealing with it. Having a much wider and much more compatible and composable structure to actually record all of these and generating any kinds of system of records in a much more modern way is now possible. When ERPs were built, the best technology was the SQL servers of the world. They're still there. They're good, but I think there is a lot we could do nowadays that we couldn't do back then. I used to deal with financial reporting that was built on actual proper complex event logs, so I know how that works and it is possible. You could never do that on the structures that ERPs were built right now. The other thing I think that basically also shows that the emperor is naked on the ERP side is when LLMs became dominant, when people saw that, okay, well, this language interface thing is quite cool. We should do this with software. So the original hypothesis that everybody was putting into place is that, well, most of your enterprise software will have it. But as you and I know, trying to, through blood, sweat, and tears, to integrate some of these technologies into these things in the past, that is actually not built for it. These softwares are not built for these kind of workflows, these kind of solutions, and so on. So really that limits of those architectures are becoming more and more evident as you move forward. And there needs to be a rethink of how you architect things. It's not about, let's move things to the cloud, right? That was a good pretend that in the past we could do in the ERP space. But now, well, you can't move your entire ERP on an LLM and say like, oh, we're LLM enabled. That's not going to work. Well, if you can do that, but then it's not going to work. So there is more to it than just doing jazz hands and saying we have AI into our ERP. There is a big change that needs to happen, as you said, do or die moment for ERPs. So with that, maybe we start focusing on the how a bit, opening up on our moving forward. So what are the things that we recommend companies think about and management of the companies think about when they're thinking about getting themselves enabled and prepared for this agentic revolution that's coming,
Plus, I
whether we
think
want
for
it or not?
first, the first thing is that the definition of agent is quite loose and could mean right now, unfortunately, from anything from an RPA bot to a chat bot to an LLM wrapper to a GPT-like, ChatGPT-like application to some of these React frameworks to AutoGen to everything, right? But the interesting thing is that going forward, most of these organizations will have some LLM based applications that will come into it, right? And we need to be ready for that. So it's not just about building like or hosting the applications, it's about how are you going to support this from an end-to-end basis, because you need to protect your data, you need to protect your know-how, you still need to give users a good experience, you still need to solve the problems, you have to engage the domain expert, you need to start monitoring and fine-tuning the models to make sure they're accurate, because they could easily get confused and throw people off in different directions. And I think the pace at which things are evolving, I'm going to be very honest, I'm having a hard time keeping track of everything that's happening. So now when I think about the users, the people who are used to more like deterministic technology that has not changed in 50 years, for them that's going to be a big change. I think that's where the playbook becomes very important, because how are you going to try, how are they going to introduce your organization to some of these applications? How do you make them aware? How do you onboard them? How do you build applications? How do you deploy applications? How do you operate agents, whether you build them in-house or whether you get third party? Because it creates a new level of complexity. It's not like a SaaS where you have very clear guidelines that you know how to do it. You have a lot of these risks, you have a lot of these leakages that could happen. You could very easily burn your annual budget if you are not careful with the function calls and LLM calls. So you have to be very careful. That's why the playbook is very important. At the same time, from a business perspective, they also have to be ready in terms of how these specialized agents will be deployed in existing workflows. How do people relate to them? Because I don't think it's people only or agents only. I think the future is going to be hybrid. And I'm assuming that every person, every employee will be augmented by a couple of agents or more agents who will be assisting them, helping them with different work, helping them tracking, taking decisions, etc. How would this relationship work in a company? How will the people to people communication, will agent to agent communication work? I think all of that. And how do we refine the performance of these agents? How do we monitor them? I think that is going to be a big open question that I would like to go drill, us to drill down, kind of merging our own lessons from the past that both of us are very fond of, also merging that with the conversation that we are having day to day with different enterprises, the conversations that we are having with the tech community and with our own in-house experts. I'm very excited to actually put this all together and create something. I think that playbook is something that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and I think I want to do public service again before we go move forward. I think the reason companies need playbooks is, first of all, no, it is not about you getting a wrapper around ChatGPT and you're done. You've invested in AI and you're solving your problems. And no, it is not about just getting co-pilots in place. You need to first understand what agents are and what they mean. And then you need to have a playbook of really how to deal with them. And that's basically we want to give in true conversations between us, between experts, and between some guests during this season to really give that deep dive insight into, okay, this is what you need to think about, this is how you should think about it, and this is what you need to know. And don't limit your mind about like, okay, now we just clicked, got yet another ChatGPT wrapper, and then we're good. It is much more complex than that. And if you really want to see that competitive edge, being able to really master the agent-driven systems, you need to think a bit deeper, need to understand what the implications and the technologies, and not just basically giving people chatbots and email summarizers or meeting summarizers. But yes, that's fun, that's cool to use. When really the edge comes from true optimizations, true operations running on agents. So that's something that I think we will do as a public service in the season 2 for everyone that would like to listen to us. And with that, I would say that we can wrap this up. Stay tuned for more interesting playbook related topics and focus on how and what to do in the next episodes. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you guys and meeting you guys. Please put in your questions. It's exciting times. We're happy to be part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.